Hello, Marcus Guiliano here, your host of In the Weeds, real tales from the restaurant industry. My voice is a little off today, so I apologize. I feel fine, but I just, can't seem to find my voice, but I have my energy, so we're going to continue with the show. And who is joining me today?
Hi, it's Pam Goodwin with Goodwin Commercial based here in Dallas, Texas.
Excellent. Thank you, Pam, for joining. You and I have had some great conversation. This content today is going to be amazing for restaurateurs because you have some really vast experience on build-ups and what consumers are looking for out there, the expectations and reality of what's happening in this industry. So I can't wait to jump into this. I've learned just by talking to you already before we've started this, so that's awesome. All right, so tell us a little bit about what your experiences are in the past. You've been doing real estate for what, 30 plus years or so, you mentioned. Talk about your days of building restaurants with Brinker and how it's all started.
Well, thanks again for having me on your show. Always love talking about the restaurant business. I know it's hard to believe now, more than 30 years, but one advantage that I have over a lot of people really is that I've worked on the landlord side and I've worked on the tenant side, which most people either only work on the landlord side or only on the tenant side. So having that experience of both, it's great when it comes down to negotiation. But I thought I wanted to, like yourself, own a restaurant. So I thought I better go learn from the best, one of the best top restaurant companies in the world, which based here in Dallas is Brinker International. So I was able to get a job in their property development department and working on the Chili's account. And at that time they owned about 7 restaurants, Brinker did. Now they're down to just Chili's and Maggiano's. I had Chili's in about 5 states. And at the time when we started, I think we were developing 50 a year, and then it went to 75 a year, and then by the 3rd year I was there, it was 150 we were opening up a year. So almost every other day a new restaurant. And I had the Texas market, and I would open about 15 Chili's a year is what I was able to open up. So, which meant property development. We were, they had a real estate department, then I took over overseeing all the due diligence, meeting with the landlord, meeting with the city. So after that, I, have become an expert on due diligence of knowing what to look for in the restaurant world, that upfront cost that can really throw off a pro forma when the restaurant opens, if they're going to be successful or not.
Excellent. So you mentioned Maggiano's. So the first time I was ever in one was in Denver. And when I was told that Brinker owned it, that it was a chain, I said, "You're kidding me." The guy who greeted us spoke Italian. They altered things on the menu for us. I said, the experience was amazing. I said, there's no way this is a chain. And this is pre-smartphones, so I couldn't look it up then. So I had to bet with my friend. I got back to our desktop computer and looked everything over. I'm like, man, I can't believe this. Amazing, amazing concept. It became one of my favorite restaurants when I went to Denver and ate. Because just the hospitality, and I'm a chef, and my friend that I went with is a chef. We had very high expectations of food and service, and they consistently delivered time and time again. I felt like I was walking into an independently owned Italian restaurant. The maitre d' there spoke Italian. I felt like I felt like it was his restaurant that he was managing, and we would tip him extra every time because the experience was amazing. Talk about guest expectations, how they executed that, and what today's guest expectations are, because this is the mid-90s, late 90s.
But I know it's still key today with the restaurants, because there's so many restaurants, and the guest expectations are really high. And even at the Brinker days, I would see the comments coming in of, they would do a survey at the time on the service. But if there's one mistake, as you know, one mistake in anything, you don't like the food, it's cold, it doesn't taste well, you're not going back to that restaurant. And you have to have that consistency and high expectations. And today, everybody's looking for something completely unique and different. My husband, he just showed, he was just eating at a Mexican restaurant. I had not seen this before. for lunch, but they actually were making the margarita, how you've seen the nitrogen or the frozen ice cream. They actually made a margarita like that, table-side margarita, making it frozen in front of you, and they sold it for $20 each. And it got a lot of attention. You post it on social media, and it just kind of explodes from there. So you have to be unique and create something different unless you're Chick-fil-A, which you're completely consistent, and the drive-through is, 20, 30 cars behind. So
Wow.
it's key.
$20 margarita. So here's what I found in my experience. People will pay for the experience.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. If I got a $7 margarita and it was terrible, I'd be upset. If I got a $20 margarita and it was amazing, I'm going to get another one. I think a lot of restaurateurs are afraid to charge. So, but when the delivery's there, there's no problem. And this is a great example of tough table side, the margarita table side. That's amazing. So great point on that. So as far as guest expectations, where's Starbucks going? Your experience, where's Starbucks going? Because I find this fascinating.
Yeah, Starbucks, they were doing really well, kind of slowed down. And now just last month, like November 15th in Chicago on Michigan Avenue, they have opened the largest Starbucks in the world, 35,000 square feet on 5 different levels. It's their Starbucks Reserve concept, selling a variety from coffee to wine to pastries to food to back to that experience. And when they first opened up the line, I'm sure it's still probably out the door to get that, $5 or $10 cup of coffee now that people will pay for.
Wow. So folks, I hope you heard Pam say this, 35,000 square feet, not 3,500, 35,000 square feet. So what's your advice to restaurants that want to reinvent themselves or increase their offerings, increase their sizes? Do you have any advice for restaurants like that?
I always say really study the competition and see what's going on, and why is there a line out one door and not a line at the other place. Really study those concepts of really what's working or not working, and you just have to really be unique. I worked on a fun concept, Rock and Brews, if you've heard of them. They're based out of Los Angeles, and a couple of the founders are from KISS, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, and I was their broker, found them their first Texas location. But when they opened up here, it was a huge success because you could, bring your pet, you could bring your kids, you could bring your Harley Davidson. They made it outdoor, they made it fun. It's a great concept. One other concept that just opened here is it's called the Truck Yard. And this company just took, I don't even know how many acres it is, just in the middle of trees, and opened up a big food truck. And it's been such a successful concept. And the guy bought a toilet museum, and just made it totally different. And it's just really, really fun. And it's a huge brew house, but people love to go to it. So if you're innovative and have something, I think, unique, and make it fun and exciting, that's friendly, for a variety, from pets to kids to a variety, you have to really be unique these days.
That's awesome. I totally agree with that. Have you heard of that restaurant on Vancouver Island, Goats on the Roof?
It sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah.
It's been a while since, yeah.
They put goats on their roof, grass roofs, and people drive like 1 million visitors a year go to this restaurant that has goats on their roof. They've expanded to an ice cream shop, a restaurant, a market, this whole thing, and people will literally park a mile away on the street to walk down and get this experience. So, talk about being unique. And I encourage a lot of restaurateurs, you're not going to put goats on your roof, but what can you do to say, oh, wow, we're going to go to that restaurant that has that has such and such, that has so-and-so. So that's always a challenge I pose to restaurateurs. What is your goat? You need a goat. What's your goat?
Right. It's either that, or you have to have, like, I love fantastic bread and butter at a restaurant. So, that will get me there. So if you're not doing stuff like that, you know, you have to have that one thing that really sticks out. The ducks walking out at 12 o'clock or, something like that to get attention and make it fun.
Bread and butter is so important. It's people's first experience of food at a place, right? It's their very first experience. And when that goes right, it sets the expectations and the mind for everything. So great. That is a great takeaway. If anybody's watching this, just to be able to get good bread and butter, hot bread, good quality butter in a restaurant, olive oil, whatever it is, we use bean dip with ours. So it's like, oh wow, bean dip, what's in that? And that sparks the whole conversation. White bean, organic local white beans, rosemary, thyme, olive oil, and sea salt. We're like, oh my gosh, that's great. And they take home pints of bean dip because they can't get it anywhere else. That's our goat when it comes to our bread. So yeah, bread, folks, this is so important. First impression of food at a restaurant, the bread is good, things are going to be easier along the way. So you've built restaurants.
Selling that sizzle, as you know,
right,
the main item.
Right. So you've worked with restaurants from building from the ground up, so building the building to helping restaurants find current locations that are already built. Talk about some of the advantages of each.
So, from the ground up, you definitely get to build what you want. Today, the costs are so expensive these days that a lot of people, the restaurants I'm representing, are looking for second generation spaces. And especially if you carry alcohol here in Texas, we're able to look up what percentage of alcohol sales are at a restaurant. So I always provide that for my restaurant clients, knowing what the alcohol sales are in that location, which is always key to make sure you want that top location. And then inline spaces, I have a project now. It's been a little tough to lease just because it's all shell space. And as you know, to build out a restaurant, it can be so expensive with all the plumbing, grease traps, and all of that a lot of people are looking at second generation. But then people kind of get a little nervous of second generation. Why did the first restaurant go out, the third restaurant go out in that location? So, you just really have to, the Rock and Brews I put in now, they were the first restaurant to go in a new development, a 400 development with our brand new Nebraska furniture mark, developed by Warren Buffett, and a huge success. But now they have 18 restaurants that have opened in the area. I just met with them. Has a big impact. So if you're looking for restaurants, you need to go, 1 mile, 2 mile radius and count every single restaurant in that area to make sure, you're still going to get customers in that location.
Yes. So in the state of Texas, you can look up, it's public knowledge, the percentage of alcohol the previous place sold. Is that correct?
Right.
Is that what I heard?
Right. Any open restaurant, existing restaurant now. So I can look up a Chili's in any of the Dallas markets here and kind of get an idea of which one are their top locations based off of their alcohol sales. Or if I'm, I was working on a small town telling a national tenant to go into the smaller town, and I did a comparison of what their alcohol sales were versus Maine and Dallas. And in the small town, their alcohol sales, and I knew their restaurants were doing better in that small town than if you went in everybody always thinks you have to go in the big city, the big metroplex, and you can a lot of times do better in a smaller town with less competition. And it proved well. They ended up going in that smaller town doing better there than one of their highest, locations here in Dallas. And you just have to kind of prove it to them. A lot of times they're hesitant going into smaller markets like that, but it can be a big advantage.
Yes. Wow. Good point. New restaurateurs, when they're looking for location, does the delivery aspect come into play at all? The Grub Hubs, all that kind of stuff. Is that a factor when people are looking at locations?
Yeah, it's definitely a factor, and restaurants are going smaller stores and concepts because of the multi-billion-dollar delivery factor. There's some companies out there now that are developing concepts and having a kitchen only, that Chili's and Applebee's and, that they can just rent out the kitchen for delivery only. And, Corner Bakery, some of those concepts are looking into that. So if they're not able to get into the market, they can still go that way. But the delivery business, you'll see it now. Instead of to-go signs, you'll see delivery, because how important to have the right mobile app that you can order online. Don't have to get out of your car. They bring it right to you. You don't have to wait in line. Everybody's in a rush and a hurry these days to get their food. So you have to be on top of all the technology these days too.
I recently saw somebody talking about this. They say you want to be in the restaurant industry without any of the hassles, start a delivery service and do delivery for 5 restaurants, 10 restaurants. And you'll be in the restaurant business without the hassle. And you'll probably make more than the restaurant. So you said multi-billion-dollar industry. So that right there means that that's a very viable, and it's got a lot of legs there. So wow, I didn't realize it was that big of an industry.
I think it's getting up to, they predict about 35 billion coming up here in the next couple of years. So if your restaurant's not on top of the delivery, if you go that route, you're going to be missing it. Some of them have gone their own delivery too. I mean, Starbucks is now delivering. Chipotle's delivering, but to have Starbucks delivering your coffee, I think I'm going to try it just to see how they do.
Yes, test it out, right? See what's happening. So when you say they're delivering themselves, so they're in-house delivering. They have an in-house delivery system.
Right, because a lot of those Dash and Uber Eats charge the restaurants such a large fee. They're really cutting into their, money that they're making. So they're having to create some of their own delivery services. They're finding out, because the fees are way too high on some of these services.
Well, upwards of 25%, I hear some people saying.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that in where I'm at because we're in such a small area. We have a courtesy van, and I'll go pick people up and bring them to the restaurant, no problem, and take them home. Obviously, if they've been drinking or they just need a ride, or they come up from New York City and have a car and they're staying in an Airbnb, we'll deliver people, not food. I mean, I'll deliver food too, but we deliver people.
I'll love that.
Pick you up, and yeah, we have a courtesy van. Works out fantastic. Everybody loves it.
It's all about service, as you know.
Right. I'm the only one in town that has it, and the hotels know it, and it works fantastic. And it's that expectation of just going above and beyond, like, oh, we'll get you home now. We'll pick you up now, or get you back to the hotel. Perfectly fine. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I see people, they're trying to call a cab at the table. My wait staff is like, no, don't call a cab. Where are you going? We'll get you there. And they're like, really? We have a courtesy van. We'll take care of it.
Oh, wow. I love that.
It's amazing. Really amazing. So, all right. Let's circle back around to customer expectations and talk about food halls. Where do you see food halls going?
I predict them to still be booming, because it's a great way here in Dallas. At Legacy Food Hall is one of our first ones here in the Metroplex to open up here, which was a huge success. And they ended up doing 3 levels. The bottom floor, they're about 300 square feet each. And it's nice to start off in a restaurant. They didn't want any chains in there, so they got a lot of the chefs that were on a lot of the different chef shows and won. And so I had a client looking at it to go in there, and they had to do, him and his mom had to do a food taste for the landlord. And they're about 300 square feet. They provide a lot of the, infrastructure to get started. So it's low entry to get started, but they were charging about 28% of your sales. And they expected each one of those 300 to make at least $1 million each per year. So they were charging a percentage rent only. They owned all the alcohol. They had the bar in the middle. And so they were profiting off that. They had 3 floors. The other 2 floors were all bars, and now they have an outdoor container box. They have it with concerts and stuff. But it's a restaurant guy here that's done a fabulous job. And they take no cash can be exchanged anywhere. You either have to have a credit card, or you have to get one, give them your cash, and then they'll give you a card that you use, so they know exactly how much money is going in. So, and they're opening up that same food hall concept around the country now. They've done really well. But I see, as you know, trying to find a place to eat. Even my husband and I, our two boys are off in college, but when there were four of us, we wanted four different things to eat. It's a great way for people to go get whatever they want and then sit at the same table.
Right. I find the food halls I go to, there's one pizza place, there's one Thai place, there's one sushi place, there's one barbecue place, there's one Italian place. So it's a great way, like you said, for everybody to be happy and then sit down and all eat together from four different restaurants. So yeah, food halls are very, very cool. Very, very cool. All right, let's talk about back to a company like Brinker. Let's talk about one of the biggest failures that you saw happen and what happened as a result of it.
What I learned from the Brinker days is when I was working on the Border, they decided to go into the Houston market, and Houston probably, they have a lot of, everybody's expectation of Mexican food is different, for example. And even though, Brinker's based here in Dallas, Houston, you would think that they knew the market. The people in Houston did not like on the border Mexican food. And those 4 or 5 on the border I opened up all closed within a year.
Wow.
So just because you think that Mexican, I've seen it too. Del Taco, I didn't represent them, but they're based out of California. They came here to Texas thinking everybody would like their Mexican food, Del Taco. They all closed within a year.
So,
type deal. So you really have to know your market, try it out, see how well it does, because I see California companies coming to Texas, think they're going to make it. Texas going to California, think they're going to make it. It doesn't. And so, we all have a different perception of what we like for a hamburger, what we like for Italian. It's that demographics you really have to get to know, or one restaurant can hurt 10 of your restaurants and profits.
Right. So I've noticed that chains make quick decisions to pull out of markets. Independents don't. They ride the storm. And, logistically, I should have filed bankruptcy 4 times in my first 5 years, because it was just one of those things where it was not working. I didn't change my concept. I just kept working harder, marketing harder. And then one day a friend of mine said to me, Marcus, I own 9 restaurants and you work harder than I do in your one restaurant. And it dawned on me that I was just doing the wrong activities. And I need to focus more on marketing, bringing people in, working on my business, not in my business. But I find a lot of independents just keep riding this out and keep taking loans, keep mortgaging things. And the chains know right away, first year, hey, our numbers aren't there. It's time to cut our losses. Yeah. We're out of here. See you later. Bye. We know our calculated loss, and that's it.
I was just going to say, another thing, learning from the restaurant business, that when you work for one of the largest chains in the world, they really do have it down to a science. They know exactly what size of straw to use. The size of it makes a difference on how much people will drink soda, for example. They know that putting a picture of, you may know this too, but I learned, putting a picture on your menu, you want to put a picture of the highest margin, the most money you're going to make. So if it's the chicken, you put that on there because it's 25 to 35% of people order off of that picture. So put the pictures that you're going to make the most money off, the most drinks and all that. But even down to chair size, it's all such a science. So those national companies really, really do in-depth studies.
That's fantastic. So I never thought about the straw. So I'm assuming if you're giving free refills on soda, small straw, they won't drink as much. If you're charging for refills, give them a big straw.
Right, exactly.
Drinking and drinking. Love it. I love that. Love that. Because realistically, you take a lot of small incremental numbers, and when you combine all those things, that's your profit.
Yeah, it comes down to chart, the debates that they talked about, do you charge the consumer extra 25 cents for that ranch dressing? But when you own a company like that has 1,600 restaurants, and you either charge or you don't charge, really they do numbers that it can cost them millions of dollars by not charging that 25 cents. So
Right, exactly. So this is always like a debate between restaurateurs. Do I charge or do I don't? Me personally, I would charge a 25 cents extra to begin with on everybody's dish.
mm-hmm.
And I don't care who orders a side of ranch or a side of pickles. I've already kind of buffered that in there. Sometimes you nickel and dime people, they're upset. And they're like, well, this is a turnoff. I've already spent 16 bucks. It's like a delivery fee.
Right.
I order from these companies, I'll spend $2,000 on food and they're charging me $5 to deliver it. No, wrap the $5 in, put it in my $2,000 bill, and don't let me see it. I don't want to see a turn off. For five lousy bucks, you're gonna nickel and dime me. So that's how I kind of feel like. Have you ever seen the Bob Farrell pickle story?
Yes. Yeah, we had that. Yeah, I've seen that movie on that. Mm-hmm. We had that. Brinker presented that to us.
Yeah, very powerful. Very powerful. Just give them the pickle. Charge them for it, but don't think they're getting charged for it. Because we all have, let's face it, there's no fairy in our kitchen waving her wand and providing free pickles or free ranch dressing. So, but it's how we deliver the cost to the consumer. So
I know just lately ordering some, food delivery, the ones that pop up first that have the free delivery versus the one that want to charge you $1.99 to, it's like, if I can save $2 on a delivery, I'm going to kind of look at the ones that are offering free. It's just psychologically just saving money or a little bit free, no matter, who you are.
That's a great point. Free delivery. I'm sure you have seen, who Gary Vaynerchuk is.
Uh-huh.
He was back in the wine days. He said one of his most powerful promotions was free shipping. Raise the price of the product, tell people it's free shipping. And he said, you would send a tweet out, free shipping on this bottle, and he would sell out. It was amazing what the psychology of, again, you have to charge for it because there's nobody waving their wand for free shipping. There's no free shipping fairy that comes here, wine shop, and goes, okay, we're not charging today, but it's the delivery and how people perceive that charge or not getting charged. So very powerful.
I think that's why Amazon has been so popular, because I definitely look for, Prime member, look for those free deliveries versus if I see $4.99, $6.99, $8.99, I don't even want to look at that item for some reason.
Right. Zappos mastered it.
Mm-hmm.
Charge you full price, no discounts, but ship them back as many times as you want. Zero hassles, free shipping back. So yeah, this says a lot of what we can adapt into the restaurant world.
And I think it was smart. I think it's, I believe it's Domino's Pizza that has the insurance that if they're not making your pizza correctly, they will, redo it and re-deliver it. So they're kind of, they're taking that same approach of, Zappos free delivery. If it's not right, come back. And so you can really learn a lot from other companies and implement it into the restaurant business, because it's such, as you know, since you can't eat online yet, it's still a growing business, and people it's still booming, and you have to really, stand out in unique ways.
Well, excellent. All right, Pam, last thing. What is one advice you would give to a new restaurant owner? Doesn't matter the concept or anything. Let's just say what's the one thing you've learned through your Brinker days, through the real estate, all of your extensive real estate experience. What's the one piece of advice you would tell a new restaurateur? I'm going to open a restaurant next year. Where do I start? What do I do?
I would always say that you definitely have to know your numbers. So, as you know, typically knowing if you're renting space, that you need to know exactly what those numbers are, because it's pretty much 10% of what you're paying in rent is what you need to make in sales. So if you're paying $100,000 a year in rent, you need to make $1 million in, revenue in your restaurant business. And you really have to know all of those costs in your business plan, really before you even start looking at space, is to know exactly, because I'll have people call me and I'm like, have you looked at your numbers? Do you know what you need to spend? And they don't have a clue as far as how much square footage they need and all that. And, just really still really know your market. It still comes down to that location. Parking is key always for restaurants. And, do you need a drive-through? Do you need an end cap? Your visibility, your signage, all of that due diligence is so important. And we actually provide that service to our clients too, looking to help to make sure that they find the right location. And my goal always is to, I strive to help my clients find that number one location. And just knowing the research up front will save you a lot of money and heartache. I never want to see somebody going out of business.
Right. So you said something super key, know your numbers. I love that. And a little quick story on how it played out for me a few years ago. A realtor walks in the door, says, Marcus, you need a second location. I said, I don't, but I'll look at your location anyway. Out of courtesy, I'll make a trip up there. He says, here's the rent. I looked at him and I said, that's a lot. He goes, no, it's not. I said, okay, would you agree that a ratio, let's throw out some ratios here, that a restaurant should be paying 6 to 10% of their overall sales should be to their lease? And he goes, yeah, that's the average, 6 to 10%. I said, okay, what did the previous restaurant owner do here? And he threw out a number like 800,000. I said, okay, you quoted me so much for rent. Let's 10%. I said, I looked at him, I said, the last restaurant did 800,000. You're telling me I have to do 2.2 million based upon the numbers you just agreed upon. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I didn't realize that. And I said, go back to the owner. You're never gonna get a restaurateur who knows what they're doing to rent this location from you. If you just can't. You're not gonna get a restaurant that's gonna outperform the last one by 4 times or 2-3 times. It's not gonna happen. And you're gonna get somebody who's naive, which a lot of restaurateurs are naive because they're confident. Well, I can make this work. I don't care if the other person failed. I'm different. And they jump into this thing, and all of a sudden they realize that they're no different. That they should have done more research. They should have done their due diligence. They should have spent more time marketing and all this kind of stuff. And then they figure out a couple years later that, hey, I just can't make it work. Something happened wrong. So I love numbers. Here's the one thing. A lot of chefs are great chefs, but they're not number people. And if a chef can't figure out his own food costs when he's working for somebody, there's no way he's going to be able to run a restaurant for himself. It's just not going to happen. And I encourage every restaurateur, every chef out there that wants to open a restaurant, you need to go take accounting classes, understand ratios, numbers, and be able to, like that, just recite them like to the back of your hand. So numbers, I love that.
Right. I would say another thing is, even from the Brinker days, we probably had about a 60-page due diligence. Another thing number one thing that we always looked for, because Chili's on the border has alcohol. I always had to make sure that there wasn't a daycare, a church, or a school within 300 feet. So there's stuff like that you need to know about too, because, they find a great location. I'm like, did you guys realize there's a daycare across the street? We can't go here. And, it just killed the deal. So knowing some of that stuff up front, hiring the right consultant to help you will save you a lot of money to do that due diligence up front. Yep. Spend a few thousand, whatever it is, to get
not having alcohol will kill your business. Literally. Yes. I mean, it is, people don't realize, well, I opened up, another quick story before we end here. I opened up 2003. I didn't open up with a liquor license first. I didn't do my due diligence. The previous owners had a liquor license. Well, between the previous owner opening up in the last 30 years and me filling in the gap of 2 years, no church moved in. I just assumed. I didn't check. I didn't go to the liquor authority. I didn't contact an attorney. I didn't go to a liquor expediter. We fill out the application and I get denied.
No.
I'm 4 months old. And I'm thinking, I don't have alcohol. I know the importance of it, but restaurants think I'll open now and get my alcohol license later. No, you won't be in business later if you can't get it. Luckily enough, in the state of New York, we had some great representatives in our area elected officials, and they took it to the state. And I was the third restaurant in New York State ever to have site-specific legislation, the church approved of it, where I did not have to go by the 200-foot door-to-door. I was allowed a full liquor license because the church signed off and said it's okay. And unanimously, the state Senate and legislator approved it, voted for it, and says, yes, Marcus deserves it. The mayor went to bat for me and said, we need it for our economy, our local community. And I was the third one in New York State.
Wow.
By site-specific legislation for a liquor license less than 200 feet from a church. But that would have killed my business. I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing right now if that didn't happen.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. That's one last thing I want to throw out. If you plan on opening a restaurant, the number one another key thing to do is go visit your local economic development director. They have a wealth of information all about the community, from aerial maps to demographics to properties available for sale, for lease, and that's their job. And they can tell you all of the information. You want to make sure that, you know, one area we also had here in town, the new highways were coming in. So I always look on the Texas Department of Transportation. It shows all the road construction. So as you know, one area, they were widening the roads. This whole line of restaurants ended up closing because those restaurants did not know. And that's part of the due diligence, making sure, I mean, there's so much into it. It's not, you know, you may not know what's happening right there, but the city, the state may have road widening, which may wipe you out. So all of that stuff, do your due diligence.
when they close an exit on a highway, you will suffer.
Right. Yep, you have to know all that stuff up front, and a lot of it is up front. And, you know, that's why hiring the right architect, the right civil engineer, the right consultants will make a big difference. And don't rush to it. Make sure you have all that information.
Well, Pam, this has been fascinating. You're a wealth of knowledge. I'd love for you to come back and do some very specific interviews that we can put on to our Restaurant Growth Secrets University, which is where our clients log in and get a lot of more in-depth training. I would love to do that someday in the future with you, because wow, what a wealth of knowledge you've had here. And this is very, very practical stuff that every restaurateur needs to know, whether they're opening now or they've already been open. Because it's never too late to hire somebody to renegotiate your lease.
Right.
Never too late to do this. And people are shocked. I'm like, no, renegotiate your lease. Things aren't the same as they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Whatever it is, things change. Hire somebody who knows what they're doing. All this stuff is powerful information that you're talking about. So thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate your time, and super excited to get this posted and let a lot of people just get some really valuable information from this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Love to share the knowledge with more than 30 years. And, you know, if I can, connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm on there. I think, Pamela Goodwin, definitely connect with me on there. I always have content and videos on that, but would definitely like to be on your show again. Great. Or part of your university to go more in detail on a lot of this information.
Do you have a website people can find you?
I do. It's pamgoodwin.com.
pamgoodwin.com. Super easy to find.
I'm on all the social media, so connect with me from Twitter to LinkedIn. I have more than 30,000 on that, to Instagram. So I really like sharing a lot of information on all that social media.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Have a great day.